Kat Perez is founder and chief of product at Health Sherpa. You can find her on Twitter at Kat Perez Says, and we will also be sharing, of course, her LinkedIn and Instagram. So Kat, I will transition from you and let you share your screen so you can take it away.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Just let me know when you folks can see my screen on your end.
Yes. Present. All right, there you go. You're good.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for the intro. Yeah, real quick, Health Sherpa. We've been around since healthcare.gov went live, if you folks remember that year. We essentially help folks find, enroll, and use ACA health coverage, also known as Obamacare. So we help low-income, uninsured folks, and we've been around and doing this for some time now. So yeah, in terms of what I'll be covering, I'll be sharing a lot about my personal stories in these next 5 minutes or so, but really talking about how kind of purpose can really drive outcomes in career. So I'll be sharing how that maps back to me as a person. For me, it's always been fluid. So it's changed over time for sure. And most of that has been driven just by really my identity and my intersectional identity and just where I came from. And I think that's true for a lot of folks. But for me, there were really specific moments that kind of snowballed into kind of where I am today. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So one big part of my identity that has shaped, my purpose or purpose at any given point in time is class. So I grew up low income. I was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, East Coaster at heart. And my parents worked multiple jobs. They were rarely home, really just trying to put food on the table, give us better opportunities, send us to private school, that sort of thing. So that was my experience as a child growing up, and even as a young adult, as a teenager, and through college. But really the purpose that I had at that point was really to achieve wealth for myself and my family. The other big part of my identity that has shaped purpose along the way is my race. So I am Korean and half Puerto Rican. And some of my experiences have been interesting as a biracial person because it just is hard to know when I fit in. When I'm, even in this example, like my father's the youngest of 10, so huge Puerto Rican family I grew up around. Less so around the Korean side because they that side of the family is mostly in South Korea, but I just didn't fit in as growing up, just because I felt more visibly Korean, and I am visibly more Korean, and I had experience like this on both sides. So I think this is something that I was struggling with as a younger person, and as a child, but really that personal purpose has been to embrace my Korikanness, so to speak. The next part of my identity that has shaped my purpose is really just my education. Growing up, didn't have access to a ton of education. I mean, my parents didn't have more than a high school education. So for me, it was, and as I mentioned prior, they really kind of worked multiple jobs to send us to private school and better schools. In college, I had to essentially work multiple jobs, financial aid, and that was with a few scholarships. So I was the first in my entire extended family to go to and graduate college, which was a huge kind of milestone. And really that purpose for me, that personal purpose was to make my parents proud. And just as it relates to my sexuality, today I identify as queer. In the past, I've identified as a lesbian. And I knew since I was, very young that I was different. And so I kind of lived the closeted life for a very, very long time. Didn't come out till my late 20s. And that was tough. I wasn't accepted by my parents for guess it was like 2 years, very religious. So it was really, really hard. But in that darkness, I found community. I packed up my bags at 25 and moved to San Francisco. I had some friends there, and that was real fun as a 25-year-old. But, you know, in retrospect, as I think back to those experiences and some of those relationships, or what I thought were friendships, I still felt othered as a woman of color, and my POC friends too within the community felt this as well. So it's just something that I'm kind of realizing and wrapping my head around now, that still can happen within community. And that's where all of the intersectionalism really comes into play. But at the time, for me, purpose was really about sharing stories to document all community members. I was very much into photography, still am, but I started this blog called Lesbians in SF, and that was super fun. There were a couple art shows. The more recent one that I've been aware of as I've entered my professional career, probably the past 8 years or so, especially in tech, is my gender identity. So I identify as a cis woman. And my experience, this is just one example, and this was a really kind of toxic experience for me. I joined this small startup in LA as chief of products, so C-level exec, and I just was not taken seriously at all. I mean, this guy, the CEO, cis white male, was literally going to a junior product manager, another cis white guy, who he was just constantly bro downing with, for discussions that we should have been having, those discussions he hired me for. So it was just, I mean, it was a really toxic experience, and that is literally just one example of many that I experienced just as it relates to my gender. And then you know, put on all of the other portions of my identity on top of this, and it gets incredibly more complicated. So purpose for me as it relates to this is to create opportunity and wealth for other women, especially women of color. So that's something that is absolutely at the forefront of my mind, just in terms of where I'm at in my career. So yeah, all of those kind of personal experiences and just components of my intersectional identity, that's, you know, they led to, you know, these kind of purpose-driven moments, which led me here today in my career. And, you know, that's building a really amazing team at a social impact company where we're serving underrepresented folks. It also means doing amazing things internally from a people ops perspective to take care of our folks and to build an inclusive and safe environment for our team members, whether that's designing inclusive benefits, whether that is diversity and difference, equity and belonging, inclusion initiatives, and more. So, and really just kind of just showing up for our folks and developing growth paths for our folks as well. This is a photo from last open enrollment. We had a little offsite. You could see there's some beverages in hand, but we had hit a very big milestone. 3 million people enrolled in ACA health coverage, so we were celebrating there. And I'll leave you folks with this. By the way, in this photo, this is me playing basketball with a few teammates, and that is the CEO, George, my co-founder, trying to block my shot. I'll leave you with a hockey quote from Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And I've taken many, but I think the thing I would like to add and leave you with is that shots can also be assists, in that you can help others along the way and still achieve greatness. Muchas gracias, kamsahamnida, and thank you.